Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, and of course of ABC 10, trying to pawn all of his junk off on us to put
That's
it.
not junk. You calling Doug Christie junk? Look at that.
That does not. I also take exception to that. That does not look like Doug Christie.
Look at that guy. Come on, spitting image.
It's a Doug Christie bobblehead, but I assure you that does not look like Doug Christie.
What about Mike?
That actually looks like Mike.
Mike's an easy one, I think. Yeah. Pagers looks pretty good too. Hey guys,
yeah, that bobblehead needs about 30 pounds to be Mike Bibby. It needs about 30 pounds and some triceps.
Actually, it might be like swole, like Bibby, like that. The actually with the head that size now.
Oh yeah, that might be a little bit more. Might be a little bit more accurate. Matt, I mentioned we had a conversation before the game, talking about this Portland Trailblazers team, and Matt's shifting around in his seat. Really worried about Anthony Simons tonight. And, for 3 quarters, Matt's worries were unfounded. And then the fourth quarter started. And it was like, oh, there he is. Mm-hmm. There's that kid right there. Anthony Simons, good ball player. And the Kings couldn't do anything to stop him in that fourth.
Yeah, Simons is that, player archetype that it doesn't matter what name is on the front or back of the jersey. If that type of player is playing against the Sacramento Kings historically, they're going for a good night. And it's just that type of player. The Kings killers over the years, Anthony Simons just fits that mold. Plus, I'm a fan of Simons. I think he's probably going to have a pretty breakout year with the Blazers. That might be putting up a lot of points on a bad team, but since he's kind of assumed the CJ McCollum role, I expect him to get a lot of touches and a lot of opportunity, especially with the amount of attention that Dame draws. But yeah, I was the one thing I was concerned about was, okay, if this game gets close heading into the fourth quarter, beware of Dame time, because that's when Dame can say, okay, I've had a bad game, but here's 5 minutes of me being what I'm good at, and I'll win the game for you. He didn't have to. Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons said, all right, take a seat, old man. We got you.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. Simons really flourished the second they took Dame off the floor. I think that's kind of what we saw through preseason, that he's quiet. They pull Dame off the floor, and all of a sudden he starts to be the primary guy. And that's when he starts to really step up. And I think it's going to take a little while for him to get comfortable playing alongside Dame. He's not CJ. CJ was a willing participant in the, sort of the pairing with Dame. And I think it's going to take him a little longer, just because he's always been kind of like the little brother, but now he's ready to step up and step into a role. And can he be like what Jordan Poole was while they were waiting for Clay to get healthy? Maybe, as far as what the Warriors were waiting for. But I'm intrigued to see where he goes as a player and how he fits long-term there.
I knew the Portland Trailblazers were going to be better. We all knew, compared to the preseason game, that Portland was going to look better, and it wasn't surprising that they looked better. They still looked disjointed. They were very beatable, and I think that was one of my ultimate takeaways from this game is, I wanted to just record a positive podcast, because even if Mike Brown says they only played 15 minutes the correct way, during those 15 minutes, I thought they did a lot of things really, really well. That second quarter was super enjoyable. Plus, your starting backcourt in their first game together combining for 56 points. I was prepared to have a really positive podcast. That there still were positives absolutely to take from this game. And I asked Mike about that after the game. Can you take those positives and at least enjoy those positives, or is all the wind sucked out of those sails because of the loss at the end of things? So I am optimistic, though, surprise, surprise, that with 2 days of Brown looking at the tape and 2 days of Brown and his accountability and the practices and things of that nature, plus, of course, the return of Keegan Murray, that I think, even though the Clippers are a much better team, in my opinion, than Portland is, I think the Sacramento Kings are going to look a lot more true to their Mike Brown form on Saturday than they did in this game last night.
Matt, I'll ask you the question I asked James a few minutes ago. What's the most important thing the Kings need to do Saturday? Need to do better on Saturday when they play the Clippers?
I think it's, and this is pretty broad, but it's get back to being recognizable to Mike Brown. Get back to doing the things that they did in preseason, those habits that they started to build, and breaking down the bad habits, or if nothing else, replacing the bad habits with the good habits. It's being recognizable. Because I think Mike Brown, he said before the game, and James, you might be able to speak on this better than I could if I'm misremembering, but he said something along the lines of, if we play basketball the right way and the result is a loss, I'll take that. Like if the Kings are able to play the same way they played during the preseason, look significantly better, the offense looks better, their defense, they're not giving up 3 30-point quarters, and they lose to the Los Angeles Clippers because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are themselves, and that Clippers team has deep playoff expectations. I think that's a little easier of a pill to swallow than playing bad and still barely losing to a Portland Trailblazers team that, quite frankly, I think the Kings still are better than. And we believe, standings wise, the two teams will be neck and neck or fighting for position when all things are said and done at the end.
The only thing I heard from Mike Brown's pregame is that I can't hit a layup. So
that's true.
I mean, that happens. I mean, it does. What are you going to do?
You're a shooter.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to have like this sort of this intriguing thing where Mike Brown has expectations, and he's going to have to see if his team can live up to those expectations. Is Mike Brown and his system going to win, or is like the Sacramento Kings and who they are and who they've been, is that who's going to win? And in game one, I mean, clearly Mike was very disappointed in what his team went out and did. Again, he just couldn't believe that that's how they played, how they came out and played. But like, he's got to figure out a way to make his team follow his rules and that to be their identity. And I think that's going to it's going to take time. It's going to take time to do.
I caught myself mumbling under my breath during his press conference when he started talking about how that team was so unrecognizable to what they've been. And it was like, I said under my breath, like, welcome to Sacramento. Like there's been so many different players, different coaches, but the same types of weird losses, the same issues, the same bad habits that this organization, not just the team, but the organization has struggled to break for so long that it doesn't surprise me that when the lights were brightest and when the games finally do matter, the Kings reverted back to what they've been known for 16 years. And I hope I get the opportunity to talk to Mike Brown about that a little bit, because his introductory press conference, he talked about every organization having a soul. And I know he wants to come in and change that soul or reinvent that soul, change that culture of Sacramento. But the soul of the Kings is a lot of what we saw last night, which is a lot of potential, a lot of capability, self-induced mistakes, and just similar kind of fall off a cliff or revert back to old bad habits when things matter most. Like I understand it's frustrating for Mike Brown, but it's nothing new for a lot of us.
Yeah, we saw that I think that was one of the difficult parts about last night's game, is it was spurts of both, right? It was like, oh, this is what Mike was talking about. This is what we've all been talking about. This is what we've waited to see. And then it was like, oh no, there they are. They're the Kings right there. They're down 10 now to the Portland Trailblazers. And then they shoot themselves back into it with the 16-1 run. And, Matt, it's going to look different, or we think it's going to look different on Saturday, because we believe Keegan Murray, who was a full participant in practice today, will make his season debut for the Sacramento Kings. How much changes with the debut of your guy, Keegan Murray, this weekend?
Well, 1-1 is locked now. Like, and the Kings would be 2-0 had Keegan Murray played in both these games.
Obviously.
I joked about this on the pod last night. Like, I'm not saying that the Kings would have won had their rookie played his first ever game, but I'm also not saying that they wouldn't have won. Like, I genuinely think Keegan Murray, had Keegan Murray played last night, the Sacramento Kings would have won. I think there were drop-offs offensively at times. Look, I mean, the Kings shot the ball the amount that they did, but they went through cold spurts. Really, I thought in the first quarter they were forcing threes. I thought pretty much for the remainder of the game at that point, they were taking good threes, better threes. The first quarter, though, I don't have my notes in front of me, but I think like 7 of their first 9 shots were from three-point range. It's just like, okay, this is all they do now. And if that's the case, like, I just think there would have been times where there were lulls in the offense with that second unit where I think Keegan Murray would have been a better option taking a corner or wing 3 than a Trey Lyles or than even Davion Mitchell at times. Like, I genuinely think that with how close this game was and how back and forth this game was, I think Keegan Murray and his composure and his shot making ability that he's shown up to the point of real legitimate NBA games would have played a big factor. So I'm pretty confident that had Keegan Murray played last night, the result would have been different. That being said, if the Sacramento Kings are relying on a rookie who's never played an NBA game before to be the difference maker between a win and a loss against a team in the 10, 9, 8 seed range of the Western Conference, then they're in trouble when they take on a team like the LA Clippers, who's probably in the, at best, 1, 2, 3, 4 range of the Western Conference. So I think Keegan is going to be a major difference maker on Saturday. Is he going to be the difference between a win and a loss? I hope so, for the sake of my pride that I have in the guy. But I also think, like, I really do think we're going to see pretty early on, even if it's as a bench player, because I don't think, even though KZ Okpala didn't score a single point last night, I thought, with the exception of picking up 3 fouls in the first quarter, at the time that he got his 3rd foul and checked out of the game, Damian Lillard had 4 points. So he was doing his job. So if Keegan is that bench guy to start the season, I think he's going to be so valuable off of that bench that it's going to be a significant difference maker for the Kings.
Yeah, Matt, what does it say about the Kings if they can't win without Keegan Murray? I mean, it's one game.
No,
but,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that, like, Trey Lyles is a perfectly capable player.
Yeah.
I think he had a bad shooting night. Actually, like, the first half is atrocious shooting night. Like, he didn't just miss. Him and Monk airballed.
He missed everything.
Man, Monk from the corner shot, like, I don't know, what is that, a 23-foot? It was at least 20, 25 feet. Like, I mean, that thing would have been good from 70. Like, he like shot the hell out of it, like, way too far. But, like, if you can't win, if you're missing one piece, whether it's Keegan Murray or it's De'Aaron Fox or it's Domantas Sabonis, like, when does the next man up mentality come? Because, like, it shouldn't already be an issue that a rookie can't play. So the 2 guys who are veterans who are playing instead of him don't get the job done. So I'm kind of concerned if that's the case.
Oh, I am too. I agree completely. The fact that you couldn't close out a winnable game against an opponent that's probably on the same tier as you without your rookie who's never played an actual minute of NBA basketball. Also, going back to the Trey Lyles and Malik Monk's rough shooting nights, they can just blame it on the hangar doors being open and the Delta breeze coming through and say it was that and move on with themselves. But, like, you're right. If Keegan Murray is so, I mean, as a 4th overall pick, I hope Keegan Murray can come in and show star potential. That being said, if the Kings are leaning on Keegan Murray to be a star for them to have a chance to accomplish their goals of making the playoffs, then this team is probably in trouble. And that's not a disrespectful jab at Keegan. That's the fact that the Kings are putting their eggs maybe into the wrong basket. But on a night like last night, where De'Aaron had an excellent game, with the exception of the 8 turnovers, like, I was really pleased with what I saw from De'Aaron. I'm sure we'll go into that. And Kevin Huerter had a great night, but Domantas Sabonis struggled. Like, could Keegan Murray have made up in a lot of ways for the drop-off that you had from Domantas? And there are going to be nights where that drop-off comes from Huerter. There's going to be nights where that drop-off comes from Fox. And I don't expect Keegan Murray to be the makeup guy for those drop-offs every single night. But I think counting Keegan in or penciling Keegan in as a consistent 40% three-point threat who can average, I think, 16-plus points per game, I think that's a big thing to miss on any given night. And I thought that absence was significant for the Kings. Not the difference between a win and a loss necessarily, or I don't think the Kings should be looking at it as the difference between a win and a loss. But had the Kings been at that full strength last night, I think they would have been much better suited to handle some of their lulls and struggles. Maybe not defensively, but some of their lulls and struggles that they dealt with, I think they would have been better suited to handle those with the 4th overall pick and a very promising rookie available to them.
I definitely want to get to De'Aaron's game last night, as Matt George is with us here on ESPN 1320. But you mentioned Davion Mitchell a minute ago, and that caused me. I kind of looked at the box score here, and I'm gonna throw this question at both of you guys. Matt, should Mike Brown reel in the green light on the 3-point shot? I mean, you have Davion 0 of 5. Trey Lyles was, he was 2 of 8 from the field. He was 2 of 7 from 3. He was essentially shooting exclusively 3-pointers. Does that need to, and I know the goal I don't remember what you guys said, 40 plus threes, 43s. We got to reel that in a little bit.
I don't think so, because I still don't think, even if the Kings got the number that Mike and Jay and Jordy are looking for, they didn't get the quality. And I think that's the difference. Is Mike wants 40 plus 3-pointers mainly created off of paint touches. And that wasn't what we got for the majority, at least in that first quarter. Like, the Kings were just settling for threes in the first quarter because they didn't know really what to do with that. Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, but Portland settled into a 2-3 zone at times that opens up the outside game. And that was the same strategy that the Portland Trailblazers had against the Kings in the preseason game. The difference was the Kings were unconscious from 3-point range in that game, and that created a lot of separation that completely changed the game at that point that Portland couldn't recover. So Portland clearly had a game plan, which is, okay, this Kings team that added a lot of new shooters this offseason, if they want to try and live and die by the 3-pointer, let's let them. And last night, I think that gamble worked because the Trailblazers didn't allow Harrison Barnes, who a lot of times last season, if the Kings were struggling to get inside, they'd give the ball to Harrison in the post. Or they, with Domantas Sabonis and the threat that he is, I thought the Portland Trailblazers did a really good job when they had to switch on Sabonis handling that. I thought Wiseman did a really good job. Not Wiseman, excuse me. Winslow did a really good job guarding Domantas Sabonis at times when Yusuf Nurkic was out of the game, and Nurkic is really the only center, like main center, that the Trailblazers have on that roster. So I think Portland's game plan was, okay, give them a lot of threes, let them have that green light. Don't let them get rhythm 3-pointers in transition, which is where Kevin Huerter really got going, or through paint touch kickouts of Fox and Sabonis having their way on the inside. So I don't think the green light should be taken away or pulled back a little bit. I think getting the quality of shot they want needs to be revisited.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think that they got some of the paint touch stuff that they were looking for. I thought the player movement got stagnant when the other team got way too physical, way more physical, I guess. That's going to be a problem. Matt, I guess if you watched, like, Sabonis was able to set up quite a few of these like sort of paint touch things that they're going for, right? But when they went to Rashawn Holmes, again, if we look at the guys who really struggled from 3, it's mainly when Sabonis is out of the game. I mean, Trey Lyles played a little bit with Sabonis. Monk played a little bit with Sabonis. Same with Davion, but those are the core guys. Like, how are they going to run this offense when Sabonis is off the court, and how can they continue to push? How can they continue to, have success when you're using different pieces and guys that maybe aren't as comfortable as Sabonis is setting up other players?
That's what makes Sabonis so valuable and so tough to replace. And I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was disappointed with Rashawn Holmes last night. I mean, we're talking about someone who we are thinking has the potential to be the best backup big in the NBA. And that wasn't just a Sacramento labeled title or projection. That was something that I read in a Bleacher Report article. I read that also in an Athletic article when talking about this Kings team. And to have 2 points and not be a factor on the glass, to not be a factor as a rim protector, which Rashawn has never really been known for, but the Kings kind of need that out of an athletic pogo stick vertical big. Like, they need something like that from Rashawn, and definitely could have used that at times. So I thought Rashawn was a significant non-factor in last night's game on both ends of the floor, which can't happen when he's playing. And I think he played close to like 18 minutes a night, or around 18 minutes a night. So that is going to be definitely an issue, James, for Mike to try and figure out, is how can, and to be fair, we saw through a lot of preseason, we saw the Kings able to handle that for the majority of a game, kind of play the same way. The difference was that when they got into the late parts of that game, they were taking on second and third stringer guys, not the starters for 35 plus minutes a night. So that's going to be definitely a conundrum. I wonder if Mike might try and go back to staggering the Fox and Domantas Sabonis minutes a little bit more, because it seemed like they both were either off the floor or on the floor together, which for the most part I'm okay with. But that's another area where I feel like in some ways, and this is putting a lot on Keegan Murray. I'm not saying Keegan Murray has the Domantas Sabonis skill set, but I think Keegan having him in the game with a Rashawn Holmes helps out significantly, which the Kings lacked at that 4 spot. Not that Trey Lyles isn't capable of spacing the floor and hitting outside shots, but Keegan Murray, in my opinion, is already a far better weapon, a far more capable player than Trey Lyles is. Even if Trey has the experience, Keegan has the skill set that I think the Kings can lean on and rely on for those 3 to 5 minute stretches when Sabonis and Fox need to take a breath.
So who's losing minutes then?
It sure as hell isn't Terence Davis, Damian.
Damn right it's not Terence Davis.
And I tweeted that last night. I underestimated. And now knee-jerk reaction because Davis has historically been a streaky player, and he was on a hot streak when he got hurt last season, and he's come back continuing on that same hot streak. But Terence Davis was very good. Very good. Now, Terence took ownership for his tip dunk technical foul after the game, and he said he believes that is where the momentum of the game changed. And I actually disagree with that, because even if half of me is like, okay, let Terence celebrate a big dunk, a monster moment in a monster game. But the other half of me is like, if you're standing over one of the best players in the game in Damian Lillard, or at least a recognizable superstar, and you do that, it's going to get called every single time. Had it been Simons or someone else underneath him, would it have been the call? I don't know. And I know that bothers some Kings fans. Why do stars get that treatment? That's just the reality of the NBA. So I do understand how Terence could be frustrated with himself and fans could be frustrated with the call. But in reality, that's one point. I don't think that's where the momentum changed. And I'm going totally away from your question here, D'Lo. I'll come back.
No, that's okay. That's fine. I'm all about talking about Terence Davis.
But when on the other end of the floor, Damian Lillard was trying to attack the basket, and I can't remember who was defending him, stayed in front of him, did not let him pass. And Damian Lillard fell and lost possession of the ball. Mm-hmm. The ball happens to hit a foot of a Kings defender. This is, I made a point on the pod we can't blame Kings official, or rather we can't blame the NBA officials for the Kings loss last night. As much as I want to, as much as a lot of Kings fans wanted to and said you absolutely could, Matt, you moron, last night on social media. I understand the venom and the frustration, especially when the refs really didn't allow the Kings or any team really to build any kind of rhythm other than the second and partially third quarters. But that kick ball call really pisses me off, because you are rewarding the player who fell and was in a compromised position and lost possession of the ball because the ball happened to hit the defender's foot. You are allowing the team that was scrambling to retain possession, reset in a moment where the Kings defense did their job. And what did that result in? I think it was a Jeremy Grant 3-point play. At that point, that's when the momentum changed, and the Kings never recovered from that. They went down on the other end of the floor, missed a shot. Possession came back, another 3-point play for Portland, and that was pretty much the game. So that's the part that frustrated me, not necessarily Terence Davis's tip dunk technical foul. But I think Terence Davis, if that what we saw last night is consistent, and I think that's very repeatable. I don't think Terence Davis was supernova by any means. He was just really efficient. If that is what Terence Davis can be on a nightly basis, you're damn right he's in the rotation consistently. And maybe if Malik Monk continues to struggle, maybe minutes are plucked from Malik. Maybe minutes are plucked from Davion, although even though Davion finished with 2 points, I had more positives than negatives from Davion in this game, to be honest with you. Trey Lyles, I think, falls out of the rotation, especially with Keegan Murray back. And maybe Rashawn Holmes doesn't play as many minutes. Harrison Barnes' minutes might be cut. I think Mike Brown has a lot to work with.
Yeah, it's interesting times. Yeah, I mean, when it came to the officials, in all my years of covering the team, very seldom do I ever call out the officials. There are times where someone does something ridiculously bad, and we're talking about NBA officials right now. I just want to give a shout out to Tony Brown, who passed away, a veteran official who had a horrible bout with cancer. We're finding that out as we're on the show here, that Tony Brown just passed away. But I never really, as a reporter, focus on the officials, because look, you gotta, the ball either goes in the hole or it doesn't. You either fouled the guy or you didn't. Very seldom does a game change specifically because of one play and one bad call by an official. Do I think there are nights where the officials are off or a player gets tossed that I don't agree with? Sure. But like, I know that's always sort of, especially in Sacramento, it's always sort of the default because of Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals. So yeah, I'm with you there, Matt. Like when you put that out there, it is a bummer though. Like I watched the replay and Sabonis, like it looked like he led the ball. He gave it a little touch with his foot and let it out in front of him. So was it a kick? It was.
But
I mean,
that's the correct call, right? Like
it's the
that's
correct
what the
call.
officials. Maybe it's a bad rule, but that is the right call.
Yeah, it was a right call. I mean, it hit his foot. Like, and if you're going to be able to get the ball because it hit your foot, where that ball could have gone to someone else if it didn't hit his foot, I don't think it was like an intentional like kick it down the court. But it looked, even like from when I saw the replay, it looked like he stuck his foot out to stop it from rolling to the side, and just kept it in front of him. Yeah, and so maybe I'm wrong there, but at the same time, like really, I think that these things happen and it's the game action and it happens on the court, and I'm not going to fault an official in that situation.
I think this might be getting too much into the weeds of like circumstantial rule changes and things like that too. But then maybe in circumstances like that, the league considers a jump ball scenario or an equal opportunity for either team to retain possession. The issue that I had was that Portland is outright given possession and given a reset when they essentially turn the ball over or were in the process of turning the ball over. I look at it the same way as a clear path foul. Like in that situation, the Blazers were bailed out. It's one thing to be bailed out by a foul. And initially, I think the crowd thought that there was a foul called, and because when Damian went to the ground, he turned up and went like this, and everybody heard the whistle and thought, okay, here we go again. And even if fans would have been mad at that, okay, if you're going to call a bailout foul, that happens for both teams every single time. Give them possession back, whatever. I can live with a legitimate foul call. But on a circumstantial call like that, where it's a loose ball, there's incidental contact or maybe intentional contact, and you outright reward, or it's like tie goes to the runner rule set mentality of, okay, well, the offense just retains possession because I think in that case, it's not the reason why the Kings lost the game by any means, but it's one of those moments late in a game that's costly, that can turn the tides of a game or can change the outcome of a game. Because had that foul not been called or that kickball not been called, do the Kings get out in transition, get a dunk, get the crowd involved, take a 3-point lead at that point or something like that? Like there's a lot of branches where the game could have gone from that point. Again, I do not blame the officials for the Kings losing this game. They had a lot, like 16 turnovers resulting in 18 points, sending Portland to the foul line 33 times. Like there are a lot of other reasons why the Kings lost this game, but that was a specific circumstance where momentum, or the Portland was given a lifeline and they knew what to do with it.
33, 7, and 7 were the numbers for De'Aaron Fox last night. But really, what really stood out to me was how active and aggressive he was on the defensive end. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I like the 8 turnovers keep me from gushing about De'Aaron as much as I want to, because sure. We've all talked about how important it is for De'Aaron to get off to a good start. And De'Aaron has talked about how important it is to get off to a good start. And I even talked during preseason, during the Phoenix Suns game, how in games where the Kings offense isn't as good as it should be and the Kings are struggling offensively, that's when they need their star. That's when they need De'Aaron to say, okay, get on my back. I'll get us going a little bit. Then we'll build momentum as a team. De'Aaron checked all those boxes last night, man. And he did so by hitting threes. Now, the only problem is a lot of the threes that De'Aaron was hitting were like step back, self-created threes, not threes in the flow of the offense, which might be more to Mike Brown's point. Regardless, De'Aaron was hitting those shots. And if De'Aaron's hitting threes, he's unguardable. But the thing was, even with De'Aaron hitting those shots, Portland was just like, all right, we're still not giving you the paint, so keep shooting. And De'Aaron made him pay for it on this particular night. I'm anxious to see how he follows up at the Portland Trailblazers game, because after Fox had like a 3-for-3 3-point performance against Portland, I think he had an 0-for-3 or 0-for-4 3-point performance the very next game. So we know sometimes it's feast or famine for Fox from 3-point range, but it wasn't just his 3-point shooting. You mentioned his effort on the defensive end of the floor. I thought he looked dialed in. I thought he communicated. You knew De'Aaron Fox was on the floor every single time. I also need to point out the fact that Fox didn't score a field goal in the final 4 minutes and 50 something seconds of the game. Like, that's unfortunate. He only had 6 points and 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter. So when it came to winning time, De'Aaron didn't do enough. But damn it, neither did the rest of the team. And your star got you through some of the lulls of this game when nobody not named De'Aaron Fox was able to have any kind of success. So at that point, pick your boy up, like help him out a little bit too, because the defensive pressure was also picking up against De'Aaron Fox late in games, hence the reason why he was turning the ball over a little bit too. So there are reasons to still be critical about De'Aaron. You'll always find reasons to be critical after a loss, but I truthfully only want to celebrate the fact that De'Aaron Fox looked like an all-star last night and was there for his team when they needed him and did enough, damn it, for the Kings to win that game.
I loved his intensity in the first half, his aggression. That's one thing I really like, James.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought Fox was great. Like the turnovers I thought was an issue, especially it happened so early too. He had 3 turnovers in the first quarter and you're like, oh, come on, man. Like he had 10 points and 3 turnovers. Like you got to pick it up. Just the attention to detail. He seemed a little lost in the situation. I've rewatched the Sabonis play just so you know, because it was on the last 2-minute report. And it is an intentional kick. I still get the play. But yeah, it's part of the 2-minute report, which that's the only error. Well, actually it's not an error. They called one error. They said that Fox took too long to shoot a free throw. Took more than 5 seconds. Like, what the world?
Oh, we're doing that now?
Like, what the
Are you kidding me?
What the world? Like, that's one of those weird, like, we're trying to balance out.
Like,
stuff.
okay, bro. Like, all right, calm down.
Yeah. So,
calm down.
I think that this is a game that Fox can build off of.
I only reference the 2-minute report when it works in my argument's favor, James. So that's now void and information.
That's
that
how
I didn't
you're
need.
supposed to use information in 2022.
It is.
You only use the information that works for you, your argument, and you pretend that the rest of the information doesn't exist.
Fun fact: that's how you use the Bible too.
I don't.
Matt,
wow. Heyo.
Private school, Matt.
Shots fired.
Matt's got some things to get off his chest. He's no longer allowed on his college campus anymore.
No.
William Jessup has revoked his passes.
No.
Oh, that's all right, buddy. You know what? This seems like a good time to end the show.
Oh, come on, let's keep going. What else you got?
Where can we take this?
Wherever Matt's going next will be exclusive to the stream.
I'm going to put Keegan Murray's name into the Bible somewhere, and it will be canon.
It'll be there. Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast. Matt, we appreciate you.